Welcome to Coffee and a Conversation, hosted by CJ Abernathy and presented by Internet Warlords, the war for the Internet. A father, an activist, a Marine Corps combat veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, Purple Heart recipient with a bachelor's degree in information technology software engineering. CJ is the executive producer for the Adam vs. the Man podcast with Adam Kokesh, the CEO of Internet Warlords, as well as a former South Dakota Libertarian gubernatorial and state senatorial candidate. If you would like to join this broadcast, please click the link in the description. Coffee and a Conversation starts now. Have a good day or don't, the choice is always yours.
I guess I messed that one up this morning, huh? Oh well, looks like if you're watching on YouTube, you'll have to go over to Facebook if you want to join. And that just is what it is. The link is now there. So what's up, everybody? It's your boy CJ, the Internet Warlord, coming to you live and loud from the great state of Meth Dakota. You know Meth Dakota, it's that state just south, North Dakota. The state formerly known as South Dakota until the Queen of Meth, Governor Kristi Noem, declared by proclamation that we're all on meth. And since then, the world has never been the same. Whew, man, what an interesting broadcast this morning. So real quick, I don't know if you guys remember. I remember going back in time, dealing with a bunch of sovereign citizens, and it used to be that you read the Constitution and one of two things was going to happen. Either you were going to figure out that the government's full of shit, first and foremost. And I think that's a common factor when it comes to what I'm about to say. But you really go one of two ways with it. You really either go, okay, well, I'm going to either try to fix it one way or fight against it another. And a lot of people choose to go that other route, and they become sovereign citizens. They basically renounce their citizenship to the United States and don't believe they have to follow any law other than God's law, right? And there was a death recently by the name of Chris Hallett. Chris and I had a run-in maybe, I want to say 4 years ago, maybe about 4 years. Well, when the last time I was, moving out here, and maybe they had heard of me. I actually, when my setup was last on the other wall back here, I actually had about an hour-long conversation with Kirk Pendergrass, the former partner of the now deceased Chris Hallett. And Chris was a dick to me, straight up. So I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I'm not really like the forgiving type necessarily, in the sense that, like, I forgive him. Like, what am I going to do in death? Be like, you know? But, you know, the thing I'm trying to get at is all these people play a role in human and child trafficking. Chris Hallett, Kirk Pendergrass, Francesca Amato Banfield, you know, the list goes on and on and on and on. People that are involved in human trafficking and child trafficking. And so when one of them gets shot and killed over the weekend, you know, it doesn't surprise me. It's not like I'm sitting here going, oh God, no, how terrible. It's called karma. When you are scamming people who are in vulnerable situations and using their children, and the fact they're going through the court system to essentially conduct your scam, and then one of your clients or associates ends up murdering you, I don't necessarily have sympathy for you or empathy for you. So, you know, it's one of those weird things, but you know, you're not going to find any sympathies here. Condolences to his family, to those that cared about him. He was a piece of shit, but at the end of the day, a lot of them are. And listen, I am more than positive that there'll be a few people that'll say I was an asshole, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to call a spade a spade. And I think when you're scamming people, it's one of the things that's where I drew the line. If you guys don't remember, I drew the line at, no, I'm not going to be scamming people who are vulnerable going through court systems, who are, just trying not to blow their brains out. These guys, what they do is, they actually aid. In fact, what these people do is they actually aid in the child trafficking, both directly and indirectly. And they both do it both literally and figuratively. And it's crazy to me that they get away with it. And you can tell a sovereign citizen child trafficker scammer from a mile away. At least I can. And Chris and Kirk were just one flavor of supporting that. And I know if you go back and watch, they're like, oh, we're against child trafficking and making outlandish claims, but really that's the cover. And that was the beauty of it, that they were able to get away with, and still a lot of them able to get away with to this day, is that they have this cover of morons that believe what they say, up to the point where once they're figured out, their clients murder them. And so this is a huge problem that again 99% of the people that have never gone through a court system will never know that these people even exist. They're like really off the wall crazy scammers. I mean, one woman scammed another woman for $5,000 and then wanted another $3,500 just to handle her court stuff. And it's like, these people are not lawyers. They have no legal background other than they read Black's Law Dictionary and can regurgitate some cool shit. And Kirk definitely being one of those assholes that tries to scam people no differently. And I used to sit here and tell y'all, don't listen to what they're saying, that they're scammers. I had to give all that up because it was just such a drain on my life that I couldn't focus on anything else. I was sitting here watching these sovereign scammers. They tried to recruit me. I mean, at one point, it was like they would be nice to me, hoping that I would go along with it. And then when I wouldn't go along with it, I'm the Antichrist in their little world. But there's a difference between reading the Constitution and educating yourself and becoming a sovereign citizen. And I've just, not happening. And I know they're going to say sovereign citizen oxymoron, blah, blah, blah. I can hear all of your triggeredness in as I say this. And I remember sitting here with an hour with Kirk. And he's telling me he's going to talk to his buddy Chris. And it's basically like I had to relitigate my case to these motherfuckers. And that's what I'm trying to get at is that if you're going through a case, stay away from these people. I mean, either you're going to end up losing your children and never seeing them again, or you're going to end and again turn out like Neely and murder Chris. But I hope it's a wake-up call for everybody that has been involved in their little circles of scams. And I'm not wishing death on anyone, but when you lose your kids and you reach out to somebody and they tell you that they can help you get their kids back, and then they financially drain you, take everything you have, and then you find out that you're never going to see your kids again, I call that karma. I don't really call that murder. I call it karma. Sure, the government's going to call it murder, but I call it karma, and you get what you fucking deserve. And in this case, I have no sympathies for him fuck Chris Hallett in this life and the next. So if you got a problem with me saying it, you know there's a link in the description. I've already dealt with all you fucking cowards before. None of you are going to click the fucking link, so I guess I'll just move on with my life. So anyways, good morning. What's up again? I guess I only got this comment here. Good morning, Matt. Lonely world I've got here today, but I wanted to get that out, these feelings out this morning. I hope that if you're a sovereign citizen scamming people, that you really listen to the words that I said there. That again, it's and at least in my eyes, it's not murder, it's karma, and I can't stress that enough. So, should I do it? I guess I should do it. All right, let's see here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I do have a South Dakota story here for you. South Dakota, Kristi Noem rigidly. You know what? I haven't had any coffee this morning. Put this away. Let's do it. Let's have some coffee this morning. Good Lord. Like I have somebody here sitting here making me fucking clips all day. Like, hello. I don't have that. Anyways. Priscilla, good morning. Thanks for not making me look so stupid. At least there was two saying hello today. All right. Enough coffee going to the brain. Let's see if I can get through this. South Dakota, Kristi Noem rigidly follows Trump's strategy of denial as COVID ravages South Dakota. Republican governor clings to the president despite his defeat and claims, quote, "We're doing really good," with the state's positivity rate at 60%. Kristi Noem, the Republican governor of South Dakota, tells a story about the first time she met Donald Trump. He welcomed her to the Oval Office, and after they shook hands, she returned the compliment by inviting him to visit her back in her home state. You guys remember that? Now, I do have some conflicting information there. Good morning, Candace. Thanks for checking out and tuning in to Coffee and Conversation. You guys don't remember Kristi Noem sold access to the President of the United States. Kristi Noem had no problem with tear gassing Native Americans on the 4th of July, and I know there's people that are like, she never tear gassed Native Americans, and it's actually quite funny because some articles say they use tear gas, some articles say they don't, and so really you can get caught up with they did or didn't. But either way, you guys remember what happened on the 4th of July? Natives are protesting. And at least there was pepper spray. We do know that much. If anybody comes forward with actual video of tear gas, I'd throw it on the screen immediately. But conflicting reports of tear gas and pepper spray. Now, with that being said, she, had no issues with throwing them in cages like criminals, and so she could go and once again sell access to the President of the United States. She's done that on 2 occasions that I'm aware of. I don't get to sell access to the President of the United States. I don't get why she does. This is a little weird to me. And she gets to profit from it. Like, it puts food in her belly. I don't get it. I really don't. But they continue to allow it to happen. She says, quote, "We have Mount Rushmore," hoping that he would be tempted. So again, Donald Trump is basically like a 7-year-old that you want to convince to go on a road trip. Go see the place with the faces. I started laughing, Noem recalls. He wasn't laughing, so he was totally serious. When he said, "Do you know it's my dream to have my face on Mount Rushmore?" You guys remember this? Noem, who's in that ripe old age of 48, is savvy enough to know when to humor a potential patron. Dude, that is about the closest line to Kristi Noem's a sex worker that I've ever seen in print. Wow. Man. Ooh. She knows how to humor those patrons. Oh, Jesus. In July, Trump did make a trip to Mount Rushmore. And for the fireworks display. And again, she presented him with this 4-foot model. It doesn't talk about what they did to Native Americans that day there, but, you know, of course, this is, you know, fake news. So, having lost to Joe Biden in the election, Donald Trump has a chance of being carved next to Abraham Lincoln. What? Oh. Wait, what? Am I reading this right? Having lost to Joe Biden in the election, Donald Trump has much chance of being carved. Oh, as Donald Duck. Oh, I need more coffee this morning. Okay, so Donald Trump has as much chance of being carved next to Abraham Lincoln on Mount Rushmore as Donald Duck. But since Trump's defeat, Noem has still clung to the president and his policies as though her political life depends on it. And yes, it actually does. Don't you remember? She was being groomed to take Trump's spot in 2024. This is a fact. A fact. So the actual lives of many South Dakotans could depend in turn upon a decision. Given that the terrifying surge of COVID-19 cases that is battering the state under Noem's contentious leadership, South Dakota has been listed by Forbes as one of the 10 most dangerous states in the union. All of them in the Midwest. Coronavirus in South Dakota is running at an intensity only surpassed in the U.S. by its neighbor, North Dakota. The state has an alarming positivity rate of almost 60%. Nearly 6 out of 10 people who take a COVID test are infected, second only to their another neighbor, Wyoming. Viewed through the lens of cases and deaths, South Dakota is also the top of the league table. More than 66,000 South Dakotans have contracted the disease, and at least 644 have died, a number likely to rise as hospitals reach a breaking point. So, not only do we have Noem, who is like knowing how to patron those patrons, you know, she's also killing grandma. Like, so I get blamed as a libertarian. No, you won't wear a mask, you're going to kill grandma. Literally, Kristi Noem is killing grandma. But, you know. Oh, but she wants to schmooze up to Donald Trump. Don't worry. That's fine. So, yeah, 6 out of every 10 people you meet are infected with COVID in South Dakota. That is crazy. Crazy. All right. Florida cop. Oh, man. You guys, never going to believe this one. Florida cops defend killing terrified teens. As dash cam video shows, no threat. This is good cop, bad cop.
Done, Master Builder.
No, Master Builder.
Oh, so you've never heard of the prophecy?
No,
or the special?
No,
You're a liar. Look here.
I watch a lot of cop shows on TV. Isn't there supposed to also be Isn't there supposed to be a good cop?
Oh, yes, but we're not done yet.
Hi, buddy. I'm your friendly neighborhood police officer. Would you like a glass of water?
Those are de facto arrests. You know, we're violating people's rights and taking money from them, or even worse, arresting them and depriving them of their freedom when they are exercising their constitutional rights. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, actually.
Too bad.
The family of Sinir Pierce, 18, and AJ Coombe, 16, have reportedly not been given much information about the shooting. The Florida police officers who killed 2 black teenagers in a hail of bullets at the car they were driving in last week are defending the shooting despite dash cam footage that suggests the officers didn't need to resort to lethal force. Go figure. Go figure. So let's see here. Ben Crump, the civil rights lawyer who is representing the families, said in the video shows the teenagers pose no threat, but the Brevard County Sheriff's Office said the teens were being pulled over about a, quote, possible stolen car before the teens tried to flee, which, quote, forced an officer to open fire. The department pointed to the video as proof of its claims. The dash cam video from the scene shows at least one officer repeating orders for them to exit the vehicle, but it was unclear if the teenagers heard him. Crump suggested that Pierce and Crooms may have panicked and tried to drive away. When they did, multiple shots were fired at the vehicle at close range, killing both teens in Cocoa, a coastal city about 46 miles southeast of Orlando. The deadly encounter unfolded in less than 1 minute. 1 minute. So let's see here. The teens' family have said the county sheriff's office hasn't given them any information about the shooting. A press release about the shooting issued by the county sheriff's office said the teens, quote, fled from an attempted traffic stop. But the dash cam video doesn't suggest they tried to flee until split seconds before the officers opened fire at the car. The Brevard County Sheriff's Office released an edited and incomplete dash video showing the footage shooting on its Facebook page. Please exercise discretion when viewing this, as brief footage is graphic. So let's go ahead and see what they released to the public. Viewer discretion is advised. If you have children watching, you're a bad parent.
Stop the vehicle! Stop the vehicle! Stop the vehicle! Stop! 1033. Stop the vehicle, goddammit! Stop! Stop! Shot fire! Shot fire!
All right. Well, would we like to see law enforcement officers not shooting teenagers driving in cars? Yes. But when a car is being driven right at them, yes, they are going to be able to justify lethal force. And yes, it looks like the vehicle was pulling in right into the path of the officer. So you're not going to see murder charges. So good cop, bad cop. I'm not going to say they're a good cop. But I'm not going to say that this was unjustified. If you're clearly getting told to stop the vehicle, guns are pointed at you. What? 18 years old? Nah, I don't think there's much excuses in there. So, not most likely not going to have murder charges, not be drugged through the ringer, and not be not lose their job. Like you again. Guns pointed at you, 2 officers out of their vehicles yelling to stop, and you pull right in like you could have hit them. Like yeah, this is what they're gonna say.
Vehicle, goddammit!
Right there,
Stop!
right there. That's where they're gonna justify the shooting.
Stop!
And that's it. So no reason to break this one down any further. Again, not going to give it a good cop or bad cop rating. Everybody should be entitled to a jury and due process. So, we'll see if anything else comes out. But that's what they released. So remember, it is, quote, edited and not in full context. So maybe if there's another angle in the future that comes out that shows that this was a murder, then I would say it's a murder. Good morning, Jim. ACAB. What is this ACAB stuff I've been seeing, man? Maybe I'm like not cool with the acronyms. I don't know. Always carry a bandana. I don't know. Or always carry a banana. I don't know what that even means. So, well, anyways, I do have a guest this morning calling in. So, ladies and gentlemen, joining me this morning, the one, the only, Mr. Christopher Bruce, the Mighty Sword. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, CJ. How you doing, man?
I'm living the dream.
I'll bet you are. Now, I wanted to comment on your police video. For one, I wanted to tell you that the movement to defund the police is still very, very much active. So we have to show everything we can to make sure that we get that movement going and keep going. Now, I also
don't be shocked when I hear the words "we got to get a movement going," and I'm like, well, I'm working on a movement right now, and I'm gonna need to take a shit later.
Bet you are.
That's about as much. That's about as much as any movement is worth these days.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to come on this morning. There were a couple of things that I wanted to go over with you real quick. Number one, I don't know if you are aware of a little something called the Strong Cities Network. Now, there's a reason I'm bringing this up. The Strong Cities Network was it was a movement to unite cities around the world that was started just before Obama got out of office. And what do you know, this is a UN-backed network, and it includes some very key cities here. And I just wanted to look over some of the member cities. Anaheim, California. Let me see. Los Angeles, California. San Diego, California. The entirety of Montgomery County. I'm not sure exactly where that is. Louisville, Kentucky.
I'm going to save your time, Mr. Bruce, if you want to point out a few more. But
no, I mean, there's only 10. There's only 10 currently in there. But New York City, Denver, Colorado, Atlanta, Georgia, Louisville, Kentucky, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Minneapolis. These are important to mention because these are the cities that we're seeing a lot of the biggest problems in right now. Louisville, Kentucky had huge riots here for quite a while. Los Angeles and California as a whole has been they've been real troublemakers. Newsom was just shot down in the Supreme Court. He's been writing executive orders like they're candy, and essentially locking down the entirety of California. He has now been put in his place. He cannot issue a single executive order ever again during the course of his entire governance. The Supreme Court has made it so. They're basically calling him a dictator. It's really funny. He flipped on masks. Did you see that? Oh yeah. He had to. Basically, he had to. He was ordered by the court to get rid of a lot of the orders that he put out already, and he is He was injunctioned to never write another order again, or he would be put out. And so I thought that was a really good court decision. I've actually got that ruling and what was said about it on my homepage. I'll share it with you if I can. But also very important, Atlanta and Denver and Los Angeles, and New York City, of course, is on that list as well. Minneapolis, Minnesota.
All right, let's Mr. Bruce.
I'm sorry. My point being is that we were worried about the UN takeover of the New World Order. Well, the New World Order is already here.
All right, and let's see if we can catch people up with what they say they are here real quick.
By 2050, almost 70% of the world's population will live in urban areas. Rapid urbanization has made cities vulnerable to new and rising threats, from political violence and terror attacks to increases in hate crime and online disinformation. Today's challenges are both global priorities and local realities. Cities have a vital role to play in addressing hate, polarization, and extremism, and no city should have to face these threats alone. Since we launched in 2015, the Strong Cities Network has helped connect local leaders, frontline workers, community actors, youth and field workers to work together for change. With almost 150 members worldwide, together we form a family, a global support network, and a knowledge exchange for cities, building communities that stand together in the face of those who try to tear them apart. In 5 years, we've worked with more than 100 mayors and 5,000 local officials, helping them to adapt to their local risks, strengths, and most importantly, unique powers. We have forged alliances which have not previously existed between cities, local communities, and national governments. We provide first-of-their-kind methodologies that can be replicated and tailored around the world. Our local prevention models builds multi-agency working and now operates in cities across the Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Western Balkans, integrating more than 100 frontline practitioners, services, and volunteers into locally led prevention efforts. Our Young Cities programme creates partnerships between young people and local government, launching youth-led shared solutions to communities' challenges. Over 200 youth have worked to launch 25 powerful change-making campaigns across Lebanon, Kenya, and Senegal, reaching over 1.5 million people online. Led by a formidable group of leading mayors spanning megacities and states, as well as smaller municipalities and counties, we take city leadership to the international stage, influencing global policy at the highest levels, from the United Nations to the Global Counterterrorism Forum.
Well, that's about all I need to know about that, Mr. Bruce.
Okay.
So that's man. So okay. So there's 10 cities in the U.S. all working with a group that's conspiring to push the UN agenda, and they're basically saying it. So. Like, this is where your, like, crazy uncle's like, they're trying to bring the UN in. And then it's like, and you're like, shut up, crazy uncle. And it's like, no, they really are saying that they want to bring in UN policy. And they've got 10 cities in the U.S. working with mayors. Like, crazy uncle proves his point. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so if you're worried about the New World Order, stop worrying because they're already here. Okay.
Yeah, they're already here.
They've been already here.
And they want that 5G rollout, you know.
So, yes, absolutely.
And you actually pointed out that the 5G with Paul Tanakin, that he was put there to make sure that 5G gets put in place.
Yes, and by the way, I wanted to mention also that South Dakota's mayor has now okayed a mask mandate. So
right after last week saying no, he's about that freedom life.
Yeah.
Now he's like, shut up and put on this mask. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, that was a big surprise to me. I was so surprised when he okayed that.
I'm sure you were like, you didn't see that one coming. Yeah, I'm sure.
No, didn't see that one coming for a mile, buddy. But anyway. I also wanted to bring up to you folks that in case, now I really just cannot see where this guy is on this. If you're wondering about, I just can't. I can't find Donald Trump sitting in a seat about the vaccines. I can't see where he's at. I mean, I can't see if he's going to mandate it. I can't see if he's going to force people to get it, or if he's just going to allow freedom of choice on that. I really don't know. I can't tell anymore. I mean, it looks like he warp speeded it so he could get it here faster and get it mandated. But then at the same time, that's what the people were asking for. So maybe he just did that to placate some people. I don't know. I really don't know where the guy is sitting on this. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't see the words mandatory. What I see happening, and this is just my perspective, I see it not being mandatory vaccination, but tying either government benefits or welfare, or requiring certain, like, to travel, like you have to have a COVID, and like, let's say if I want to go to Washington this weekend, yeah, I'll need a COVID pass. Yeah. Hey, I've been tested or vaccinated already. Schools, to put your children into public schools, or even to go to their school events, you're going to have
Which would explain the massive exodus of public schools.
We've actually, last night we put on our Thanksgiving special here for the family that the kids have done, because we've been homeschooling this year. The kids have not been attending Eureka Elementary here. They've been going to our homeschool and doing that.
Now, are they doing the online learning, or are they just being homeschooled out?
No, they're just being homeschooled.
Okay, good. Good.
Now that's just not to say they can't use a computer for research or whatnot, but they've been doing straight up homeschooling. So it's been kind of interesting. But yeah, I see them not being able to get away because Obama, the forced Obamacare's forced pay $1,000 or $1,200 fine if you don't have insurance. They bitch about the fine being mandatory there. So I'm gonna say that the hypocrisy would be pretty quick if Trump said everybody has to take one. I don't think he's going to. I think he's just gonna allow places to decide you can or can't come in here. Like, you can't go to a sporting event. You can't go to we're going to have to now literally have something, I believe, on our ID cards or driver's license that say you are COVID vaccinated.
COVID free. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you something. One more question. I'll let you go. Who do you think, what do you think about this whole election thing? Where do you think it's going to go? I want your prediction.
Well, actually, I'm glad you asked, because that was pretty much what I was going to break down today at some point. So I'll just say it with you here. I think that Donald Trump has lost the election, and I think that there was massive amounts of fraud. I think every election there is massive amounts of fraud. I think every election is rigged. I think none of the numbers are real. And I think that we're all arguing over the peas and carrots when they're sitting there eating the actually, I don't even know if we're eating peas and carrots at this point anymore. But, we're lucky to get the crumbs that fall on the floor.
A while back that I spent 3 days in Facebook jail. And when I spent that 3 days in jail, it was over a snapshot that I had put out that showed Obama, the Bushes, and the Clintons and everybody all in one big happy family picture where they were just all sitting together, and Mr. Bush was in his little wheelchair looking like, and my point being is that I put it up and I said, looks like a good group for a hanging list. Now, of course, they took it down for that, but I have the feeling there was more to it than that. I think that it showed Republicans and Democrats working together in the same boat, and I think that was pretty misleading for them. So they didn't like that. So they took me out and put me down for 3 days because of that post.
Well, whether you support the Republican, or the Democrat wing of the Socialist Party of America is irrelevant, when it comes to war crimes, when it comes to, the corruption that they've caused together. I think it's really irrelevant that, one side believes they're better than the other. Don't get me wrong. This is where, I can see like the capitalist libertarians who are like, I'd rather have Trump because it's going to be lower taxes. And it's like, shut the fuck up. I mean, we've got how much we got how much national debt? The deficit's what? Like, no, there's, when you go back, 4 years ago and you listen to Trumpophiles, they're like, oh, the debt's going to be lower. He's going to stop it. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. And really, the motherfucker's a constant lie machine because the national debt is retardedly out of even like.
Oh, and the national debt, people don't seem to understand that the national debt is, we are standing in the place of that debt. We, the people that are, and the people that own everything, those are the people standing in for the national debt. The national debt is not owed by the government. It's owed by us personally.
And that's a lot of things people don't see. And this is, again, I'm not trying to go down the road between sovereign citizen and just questioning your government. I can't stress that there is a slippery path to the government labeling you such things. But when I go to like the national debt clock, it doesn't say here debt for government. It says debt per citizen, debt per taxpayer.
Right, exactly. You are the standing for your national debt. That is, right. You guys don't understand that everything you are and everything that you own is corporate property. It's basically, you're standing in good faith for the national debt.
Yeah, and, the public debt to GDP ratio in our country is 96.83%.
Oh, I agree. And I believe that fully. The whole system, the system in itself is predicate on the fact that we just basically give up everything. Now, one of the things they're going to do with this virus thing, by the way, and in case you don't know this, one of the things they've planned on doing in Canada is that, or this was leaked out by a Canadian parliamentary member. It basically gave the plan for Canada, Canadian plan. And I've looked this up, by the way, and it seems to be happening. The plan is that they're going to drive people into massive debt because of COVID-19. And once they've done that, the UN is going to come in and they're going to offer absolute debt elimination.
Which is what you just
across the board. And in return for debt elimination, you have to give up all your private property, you have to give up all your private assets, and of course you have to give up all your guns. So that's the plan. That's what I've heard.
Oh, I hear you, Mr. Bruce. ACAB stands for all cops are bastards. I thought it stands for always carry a banana. Let's see here. Jim Freedom says, if it is mandatory to participate in basic social functions, then it is mandatory, period.
Oh, by the way, the Kentucky governor has now decided that his mandates are no longer mandates, they are now recommendations, which I thought was a very interesting point. Nothing can be mandated as far as your health is concerned. And constitutionally, it violates some of your more basic constitutional rights. So essentially what they're doing is they're calling it a mandate out in public because they need to back up the force for that law, or whatever they call that, the executive order. But then when they get in close quarters with the public, what they do is they start calling them recommendations. And I thought that was rather odd. And I sat back and I thought about that for a minute. And I thought, oh, yeah, because if he gets that in court, a mandate cannot, well, your health decisions cannot be mandated by law. So if you get it into court and he says, well, I just called them recommendations, well, then you can't vote that. Well, he's just giving you his advice. He thought that you should wear a mask.
Listen, I'm all for government advice as long as I can give 2 double-barrel middle fingers to the man when it comes down to it.
Thank you. And
like you can advise, like Mr. Bruce, hey Chris, go jump off a bridge. It's a recommendation. Okay. And be like, yeah, no, I choose to not. You know, like, oh, okay.
Right, exactly. And but I didn't really mandate that. I recommended you jump off the bridge. I didn't tell you to jump off the bridge. Well, and the whole plan is really ingenious because what they've done is they've paid businesses to enforce these so-called mandates or recommendations. And the businesses themselves say, well, you can't work here if you don't follow this mandate. And when you walk into these businesses, well, you can't come into these businesses unless you have your mask on. So essentially, they have paid businesses to enforce this recommendation for the governor. So it's rather ingenious how they've made it work.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm still looking to see if I can find anywhere that says that he'll make it mandatory. It says there's an article here that says the U.S. president can't make mandatory vaccines.
Absolutely not.
But he can. But he can find ways to incentivize states to do so.
Thank you. And that's exactly what the CARES Act does. The CARES Act pays these businesses money to save them from economic ruin, but in taking this money, you have to enforce our mandates, any state mandates that occur.
Let's see if I go into the CARES Act and I can I search on the page here? Does it allow me to word search on this PDF?
Probably not.
No, they're not going to let me quickly. They're not going to let me go through the 335 pages of the CARES Act and find a simple.
They don't want people. They don't want the general public knowing about the CARES Act. The CARES Act basically is bribing businesses to enforce any local or state, and basically what that money, by the way, comes from the FEMA fund, the emergency fund. It comes from that part of the government's funding. So basically, your fund, the CARES Act is funded by.
The word mandatory only appears in one sentence of this on page 260. It says the website shall provide information on federal allocations of mandatory and other entitlement programs by states, counties, and other geographical units related to covered funds of the coronavirus response. So it's mandatory and entitlement programs. There's only one time that the word mandatory appears in there, and that's with the federal
because they're not going to put the word mandatory
and other entitlement programs. So I guess the next thing would be to look up entitlement programs on here and see, and it says it's by state. So, I mean, you're talking.
Right. Well, basically, the government pays the state, and the state funnels all that money out to the businesses. Now, what they did here in Kentucky was they promised people money later. They said, if you enforce these mandates now, or these recommendations now, I'm sorry, then we'll give you money in the summertime, which was last summer, of course. But they started that in like February, and they were promising people money later to do it now, which is how they got every business on board.
You want to know how many times the word required appears in the CARES Act?
I can imagine. How many?
129 times.
There you go. We don't need mandate. We've got requirement. Yeah, they avoid the word mandate and there's a reason for that. The vaccination, as I said, will also probably be mandated the same way that masks were mandated. It'll be basically a recommendation, and businesses will fire you if you don't get your vaccine. And also, you won't be able to work or go into those businesses without the vaccine. So it's basically the same thing. They're just going to do it differently.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too, man. All right, well, Mr. Bruce, thanks for joining me this morning and bringing some crazy conversation to the table. I appreciate it as always.
No, I'm always good for that, if nothing else.
Hey, you came on, proved your point, though. They are trying to bring the UN into the U.S., and this is how they're doing it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Right. Keep your eyes peeled.
Thanks for joining me, Mr. Bruce. We'll see you later. Mr. Bruce, everybody. Always fun to have somebody pop in and bring some awesome to the table. Let me check comments here real quick. All right. So Mercedes says the birds are real, money is fake. I think one of those statements is accurate and correct. Good morning, Mr. Gilligan. You are not a bastard. No, sir. No, sir. Mr. Freedom, but you will still be punished if you don't follow the recommendations. Yes, that is what we're looking at. Required 129 times in the CARES Act. The school district, Mercedes says, good morning, Mercedes. The school district has been mandating vaccinations here for decades to go to school. That's why we have such large homeschooling populations. Interesting. Look at the date the CARES Act was introduced. Okay. I don't see when it was introduced here. I don't see an introduction on the CARES Act, but I'm sure you already know. Wait, it was begun Friday, the third day of. Oh. Well played, Jim. Well played. So it's not actually, so on here, Jim, it doesn't say 2019. It says begun. Wait, is this begun and held at the city of, this is the 116th Congress at the second session, which begun and held in Washington starting Friday, the 3rd of January, 2020. So they had the CARES Act probably, and this is where I think you're going with it, Jim, is that it was written way before this happened. And I would then say it wasn't brought to the Congress until this sitting on Friday the 3rd. So Google CARES Act introduced. Okay, Jim. All right. I do have somebody backstage here I will get to just a moment, so stay tuned. CARES Act introduced. Yeah, 2019 to 2020. Introduced on right there. Yeah, introduced on January 24th. Whoo, damn, Jim. What does it even all mean? What does it even mean? Now, here would be the real question, okay? Here would be the real question. Does this say coronavirus? Coronavirus. It says coronavirus in this CARES Act 519 times. Okay? So if this bill was introduced in 2019, I mean, do I need to answer this rhetorical question, Jim? I mean, is it this time? Is it rhetorical at this point? Is it? I don't know. All right, let's see here. It's most likely they knew it was a thing from something. Oh, look, it's almost like I was right on something. The C in the word CARES is corona. Yes, I understand that, Jim. It was rhetorical. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest joining me this morning, Mr. Mike Gilligan. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm much better, thanks.
Say again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah. I'm 3 weeks out of surgery. So
How you doing, Mike?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Good. How you feeling?
I got a nice scar on the side of my head and my back behind my ear, and
you're looking a little thinner in your face. You been eating all right?
I've been eating like a pig lately.
Wow,
Trying to recover. It's helping me recover.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm glad. So, what brings you on the broadcast this morning, Mike? You got something crazier than Chris?
No, I was trying to catch what they were talking about. It sounds like they've incentivized everybody to just take more of our property.
I
mean, what's so abnormal about that? They've been doing that for a century.
I mean, government taking property through civil asset forfeiture and laws that they create. Yeah, no, I mean, who didn't see this coming?
Yeah, I was reading the title of that, the CARES Act. There it says, it said the city of Washington. I guess that's D.C.
That at the top, it says the city of Washington. Yeah, the 16th.
So how does that apply to the 50 states?
Well, this is through the Congress, and we send congressmen and congresswomen to DC. So that's
but they should have specific language and definitions about what are where it applies.
We send 2 people from every state to go make rules for us to follow.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they apply to us. It basically is only those representatives also have temporary residence in Washington, D.C. So that basically is just for Washington, D.C. It shouldn't be specific about that those representatives should come back and that it applies to their state.
Yeah, you would have to ratify it through every state in order to...
Or a state legislature, but they're not doing that.
No, a state legislature that disagrees with the CARES Act isn't going to pass the CARES Act.
And it's all trickery. It's all about,
But what they'll do is they'll say, hey, guys, if you don't vote for this thing, we're not going to make it so this thing over here that you want's done. And they just, it's political.
It sounds like Title 4D.
Yeah. It sounds just like extortion and racketeering and criminal cabals. I mean, it's what we've been talking about.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I've been trying to keep calm and not watch the news and all this nonsense because I got to keep my pressure low.
Yeah, I hear you. So how is the brain then? I mean,
yeah, I had what was called a CSF leak. It's a spinal fluid leak through my left ear, and basically what happened was that I've been misdiagnosed for a decade. And I was having pressure and had tubes in my ears, and there was a clear liquid coming out, and they were treating it like an infection. It wasn't an infection, and it was spinal fluid. I finally went to the right doctor recently, and they diagnosed the fluid. And when they went in, I had 3 holes in my skull that were worn away from the pressure between the dura and the spinal fluid in my brain and the skull, and it got worn out. And a piece of my brain slipped through the skull.
Yeah.
When they had to cut it off because it was dead. But I'm still good. I can wiggle my fingers. I can wiggle my toes. I could talk. I could, I regained all my function. It wasn't a big deal. But
that's got to be scary though, going through something like that though.
Well, dude, you have no idea. You have no idea. They walked me into the operating room.
Yeah.
Jesus is calling me.
Oh, yeah, Jesus on the.
Hear the bells?
What's that?
Did you hear the bells?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I covered a story this morning, Mike. I don't know if you were able to see it or not. If you caught that in time, I did a good cop, bad cop segment, and it was 2 cops that shot 2 teens that were driving a car, and it looked like the the cops were telling him to stop, telling him not to continue to drive the vehicle, and they looked like they were about to run over one of the officers, and they got shot. So it was, you know, you hate seeing things like that happen, but you can't.
What did these two youths do?
Well, they allegedly had a stolen car.
Yeah, well, here, listen. I mean, we had a policy in New York City, you know, and we kind of always disregarded it when we come across somebody with a stolen vehicle. It happened quite frequently in the Bronx where I worked.
Yeah.
And, Sergeant was to immediately go over the air and cancel a chase or any type of pursuit. And
here's the dash cam footage released by the department, and it shows it is an edited video cut down only for time. But you can see there's going to be a car here that pulls into a driveway. And then what ends up happening is that the car doesn't stop, right? The car keeps moving. The officers are out of the vehicle. They've pointed weapons clearly, and this is an escalation of force. Because you got a vehicle. Now you can watch in the left side of your screen, you're going to see an officer come on into camera view, pointing his weapon, saying stop, and they don't stop, and he opens fire. And he's driving right towards the law enforcement officer. So I'm not, and these a 16-year-old and 18-year-old.
Yeah, sounds like stupidity on their part, but you know, I mean, if the cop felt like he couldn't get out of the way in time, I don't know. It all depends. You have to really understand what the call was, how they got it. Was it a pickup? Was it a radio run? Was it a flag down from somebody that says, "Hey, listen, these kids just took this car without permission," you know? And were they fleeing a crime scene where they committed a robbery or a bank, you know, burglary or a domestic violence? If somebody was injured.
Yeah, you know, all it said was that they had allegedly stolen this vehicle.
Yeah,
it was a possible stolen car that had just recently fled from another deputy in another area.
Yeah, well, they should have just de-escalated it and let them fucking dump the car. So you collect the car later, you know.
And I'm just going to go on the record as saying, like, it doesn't matter if I'm a cop or not. If you're going to drive a vehicle towards me, I'm going to shoot you. Like, it's.
Yeah, I mean, you're defending yourself, you know. It was stupid.
I mean, it's like you can't. It's like I can't condone. I can't condone the shooting unless it is in self-defense. Like, and in a sense, when somebody's driving the car right into you, that is like the definition of self-defense. I mean, they've multiple yellings. You can see a window was down. The cops are pointing guns at you. In my experience, if a cop's pointing a gun at you, you should probably stop moving.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
I mean, unless you want to get shot, because that's
I'm thinking smart here. If I was them, I would have just put it in reverse and went down the block the wrong way, backwards.
I mean, yeah, Monday morning quarterback, you're like, well, at least you're not driving into them, where guys like me can say, well, you drove into a cop, you're probably going to get shot.
You could probably get a lead on the cops because they're out of the vehicle. They have to get back in the vehicle.
No, I don't know if the two teens, if the cops knew this and all that, who was driving, I mean, maybe they just knew, be on the lookout for this car. He just fled this deputy.
There was a death involved here?
Yeah, both of the teens were killed.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah.
From those couple of shots, both of them got killed? Did the pursuit go on and they got shot somewhere else?
No, they got shot, both. They both were killed.
It's crazy. Very stupid. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, and that goes back to, again, fear of law enforcement. Fearing, if you. I think that there has to be a way to bridge the gap between you're parked in a car, you can stop, you're gonna get arrested, you're gonna go to jail, you're gonna be put in cuffs, but there's a clear moment where you choose to go back up and reverse, and you choose to go forward and drive into law enforcement officers. Like, if you play Grand Theft Auto, which I'm assuming these teenage boys did, they're gonna know driving into cops, you know, you're gonna get shot. Like, it's so. I mean, again, so the Jim here says, well, let's start with how Jim says it here from the beginning. That cop was not in danger, in my opinion. You can see him step closer to the vehicle as it goes by him.
Yeah, that's a Monday morning quarterback position. You have no idea. Unless you've been in the uniform and confronted people in dangerous situations, that's very easy to say. I can tell you in New York City, every time I got out of the car, I did midnight tour. Every time I got out of the car and I pulled over a car that was suspicious, looked like it had been stolen, lights were blinking. They were all indicators that were indicating that it might be stolen. We had information on the car. I was coming out with guns. My gun was out of my holster, and we were approaching it to try to get to the bottom of it. And if you do something stupid, there's not too many places to go.
No.
You know what I mean? It's easy to point the finger at the cops. You know, hey, I would have been more, you know, I mean, you could Monday morning quarterback in so many different ways, but, you know, they must have had a rash of thefts and they were being aggressive about catching thieves. But in New York City, we had a policy. You couldn't chase. You were told you couldn't chase. The boss would call it off immediately. And if you continued to chase after he put it over the air, you were in trouble. And, you know, a lot of times we continued to chase and we would act like, oh, yeah, we're just following. And the vehicle's like 300 yards in front of us, you know.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to say that. I don't want to necessarily, in a sense, justify reckless shooting, but I think where you're not going to see any charges come out of this case is the fact that, again, they were in a possible stolen vehicle, and again, I like how they've said possible, but possible stolen vehicle, fled another deputy, you know, at some point. And I really hate saying it, is just that interactions with cops, the longer they last, especially if you're fleeing or have committed they have probable cause that you've committed a crime of some sorts. The more you interact with cops, the more likely your chance of death actually is. I mean, I have statistically a 0% chance of being killed by a cop if I don't ever interact with cops. But
Correct.
just by those lights coming on behind me, that is a signal that your life is on the line, that you could possibly be murdered or shot by law enforcement, either justly or unjustly, depending on your actions, every microfiber of your body. I mean, there's a reason why black people sit there and say, you know, well, we don't move our hands, we don't do nothing, I'm not grabbing no wallet, I'm not reaching for nothing. Like, my hands are in between. In fact, I've seen a video where one black guy cuffed himself to his car wheel so he could say there's no chance, no nothing, that you're going to tell anybody that I was reaching for something. I mean, then so there is that legitimate fear that's embedded into a culture. So I just kind of wonder, you know, I think that has to do with more of a community learning than it has to do with me bitching over the internet about it. But, or because I mean, I'm not gonna be the one that says, "Hey, black community, don't run from cops," you know. But when you run from cops, that
doesn't it have to do with parenting?
You know, that it does. It has to do with parenting, but you running from law enforcement exponentially increases your chance of death. Now, Jim says here, you know, that, you know, not that anyone hasn't been shot by, you know, doing what they're told. People have been shot by law enforcement doing exactly what they were told. And but again, in this case, they're not. So you know, it's really hard to see charges being brought against them. It's really hard to. It's tragic. I mean, when two teens die, they're young, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, like I said, that we need to teach people that the longer you interact with law enforcement, the more likely you are to die and at the hands of law enforcement. So, you know, again, I don't want to preface any of that with, well, as long as you're not breaking the law, because again, some laws are unjust, and that's where I think I can hear you saying, it really comes down to discretion. It comes down to, officer discretion, and I would dare say add accountability by removing liability, or by removing immunities, by saying, okay, I'm going to give you your discretion, but I'm also going to give you accountability by removing your immunity. And so now you have
that immunity thing is like a little blown out of proportion. Cops really don't.
Do you really think that?
I don't believe cops have complete immunity. I can tell you where I worked, I know a lot of cops who lost their jobs, a lot of cops who went to jail, and immunity is this gets thrown around too loosely. Unless it's in writing, it means nothing. It's just a word.
Okay.
I never signed any immunity agreement with anybody. Wasn't in my police contract.
It is a precedence. Do you agree?
A precedence for what?
That it's assumed precedence in courts of law that officers have immunity, just like judges have absolute immunity.
You can make that statement, but you also have to realize that police officers accepted the job. Men and women accepted the job of, serving, protecting a community, and they get the benefit of the doubt. I'll say that they get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to dealing with things, because the city's taking responsibility, or the municipality you belong to is taking responsibility for you training them, and putting them into scenarios, doing all kinds of stuff. And I've been there, done that, and it's a matter of, going out on the street, and shit's going to happen. And you got to remember, the same people that are in the uniform are citizens just like everybody else. They're fallible human beings. There's nothing unique about them. You know what I mean? They just have this experience of going through a police academy and stuff like that.
So if you're
trying to differentiate between right and wrong. But
right. So if you're telling me that there's no real immunity for law enforcement, it shouldn't be an issue then to put that there is no immunity for law enforcement into writing and make that into law. So then, therefore, we can bring back discretion, but at the same time while having accountability. I find that to be the middle ground.
They don't want discretion anymore.
Well, then that's on your side of the issue. I would rather, and just for the record, I would rather officers have discretion.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you stories that would make your head spin. I mean, I've seen cars get stolen, and I'd be a block away, and somebody on the street would say, well, they're just stealing that car. And then that car takes off like a bat out of hell.
What do you think about something like this, Mike? Like Mike says here, should individual officers carry a liability insurance similar to doctors? That way, the concept being that if a bad cop has too many incidences, that they become uninsurable, therefore weeding out a bad cop, where a good cop has lower rates and therefore easily insurable.
Yeah, the city indemnifies. City or the municipality you're with indemnifies you. You have that insurance already.
Oh, so that already is a thing.
It's already a thing that you get indemnified. That if it found out that there was some kind of liability, the city pays out. The New York City Police Department and the city of New York pays out millions of dollars monthly to people who are bad people. I can tell you, I broke an arm of a guy arresting him. I observed him assault somebody, knock him out, and it was a big melee. And I broke his arm. I went through the whole process. I was indemnified. I got cleared by CCRB. I used my PR-24 to restrain him, and he kept resisting, and his bicep broke. That bone there broke, snapped in half, and I was cleared. They paid out to this guy 5 figures after they cleared me. After they said I did everything proper, everything the way I was trained. You know what I mean? I articulated myself correctly when I went and I got investigated. You know what I mean? And you're automatically indemnified unless they find out that you were completely out of bounds. And I don't believe I ever was. And
you seem the kind of guy that used to be that old school discretion you talk about, Mike. That's what I
listen. We let people. I let people go. Me and my partner would let people go. Well, listen, we would get information or say, get the, they give me something better than what I got this guy for if he's just a petty theft. You know what I mean? He says, yeah, well, this guy over here, this is what he's doing. And if I got information from him that was verifiable, I'd be going after the other guy because we wanted to bring in felony colleagues. But,
Right. So Mike has another question here for you, Mike. Should body cameras be mandatory for the protection of both parties?
I don't have experience with body camera. I got off the NYPD before they put them on. I don't think I would have liked it. And in my opinion, you're not going to get quality policing with a cop with a body camera. I'm not going out of my way to be aggressive or assertive in protecting anybody with that body camera on because it's a liability, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to get perfection on the street. We're all human beings. And let me tell you something. The four letter words fly like crazy. Don't what I mean? When I get called a white nigger, excuse my expression, and I was called it quite frequently, I would come back at them the same way we'd be coming back at me. But you don't want that. The public doesn't want that. Oh, I get so outraged when they hear this stuff. When reality is so much different from what people want to really see. It's bullshit. Reality is tough for people to watch. Just really tough for people to watch.
I agree with you there, Mike. And the thing is that to me, again,
they're doing nothing. They're doing nothing with that thing on. They press that button, whatever they got to do. They're not going out of their way to go the extra mile for anybody. Sorry, but
I don't know. I think that there should be body camera footage for all things. I mean, I do believe that it does add that third party witness that everybody's neutral in that middle ground. Yeah. I mean,
it also allows the Monday morning quarterbacks to apply their own.
I do have a segment called Good Cop, Bad Cop that is highly, needed to have body cam and dash cam footage because that's how you do Monday morning quarterback, whether or not a cop is innocent or guilty, or if a person is innocent or guilty. And that the only neutral party in that is as much camera footage as you can get.
Yeah, cops are very. They want to remain. When they first introduced the computers to the police department, we used to have this little box, this computer thing, and every time we'd come out, I thought it was a cool tool. We'd run plates or whatever. But I'd come out a lot of the old timer cops, even before me, they'd be throwing coffee on it, disabling cutting the wires to the computer because they wanted old school. They wanted to be able to call in and have somebody else tell them, yeah, you got a 1016 vehicle. Those guys want it. Yes.
Now it's all streamlined and robotic, huh?
Yeah, pretty soon all they'll have to do when they put the chip in your hand, they'll just be able to go boop.
All right, I got one more comment for you, Mike, and it comes from 1054. That money paid out by the city is tax dollars. Cops should have to pay it themselves, then they'd have a vested interest in being a good lad. What say you, sir?
Nonsense. If I get investigated and cleared, and the city still pays out, and at least 75% of cops are cleared, it's not on me. The city makes the choice to pay out, not me. Corporation councils of the cities that you belong to make those decisions, and they pay out. I was outraged when I found out 2 incidences that I know of. They paid out to these people, and they were wrong. They were perps. They resisted arrest. They violently assaulted another person and committed harm. And then they pay them out? Are you kidding me? This goes on every day. This is what the public doesn't see.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I do agree that it is taxpayer dollars, and I think that that's where, again, I think individual liability insurance for each cop would be the solution in that aspect. But I mean,
you won't have a police department. They won't join. You won't have people joining the police departments.
Well, Mike, I was gonna say, since the second to last time we talked, law enforcement officers have been walking off the job and finding new career fields at the cyclic rate. So I think that started all about the time where you were like, hey, listen, you don't got discretion no more. This is not a good field to be in. I might feel and be inclined to feel that maybe law enforcement officers are feeling the same way you do and believe the same way you do, that this is a dying profession.
Yeah, it's a dying profession, and you're not going to have quality policemen on the street anymore. You're going to get robots. And, when you have to call a sergeant to the job that you go to, that you're assigned a radio run, you go to the job, and it's a dispute over a parking space on the street. And you have to call the sergeant to get, because it's getting out of control, to come make a decision. You got a problem with the police department, and I'm telling you, the discretion is dead. There's no making your own decisions. Might as well make everybody a sergeant. There's no such thing as make everybody a sergeant.
And then every Karen out there, get me your sergeant. Like, we're all sergeants. What do you want?
Get me a supervisor. Go home.
Go home. You're drunk. Yeah.
Go home. I mean, listen. It's just ridiculous, what I mean? And that's when there's no protection or safety anymore. It's do as I say. They control you and take your money from you. That's all it's about. Tickets, and that's all they care about.
Well, I'm glad to see back to your lively, vigorous self, and I'm glad you're doing okay after your surgery. And
make sure your folks know that they're watching here. I'm retired. I'm just a regular Joe now.
Here, I'll let you tell them.
I'm just a regular Joe, and I don't believe in the system really anymore. I don't believe in the tax system. I've done my own research on taxes. People make, some of the books I've read. We're very ignorant in this country. We don't know what the laws really are, what they state, and because we never take the time to look at them, and we speculate, and we hear what we hear on the news and what these talking heads say they don't even know what they're talking about. And it's I'm glad to be retired. I'm retired 7 years collecting a pension, and I did my time. I did the best I could, and we solved some problems, but it is what it is. The old school cop is dead, and you're not going to get quality policing anymore. You're going to get a lot of robots, and it's about controlling you and separating you from your money. That's all it is about today. That's it. And you could, and if you start charging cops, and they have to pay for insurance, you're not going to have a police department, and they're not going to do shit for you. And when they get the radio run on the air, robbery in progress, you're supposed to put the lights on. They'll put the lights on, but they're going to obey every single red light to get to your location. They're going to make sure that the perp who robbed you got away and make it a crime of the past. They're not going to rush. That's what they're doing now. And that's just the way it's going to be. Cops will be just great report takers, and you people are just the regular citizens are just going to be victims. They're going to be victims everywhere. Where were you? How come it took you 10 minutes to get here? That's because that's what it's like in my county. You're on your own. You don't realize it, but you're on your own.
Man. Mike, always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. I don't know where it all goes, but I can tell you've hit some excellent points here and some perspective that I wish that people would listen to more often and would take into consideration before we crucify. I do want to give you this one spoiler. I have a friend on my friends list who was the cop of cops. And he has lots of bad cops that have been taken off of the force under his name. His name is Gordon. And he's going to come on and show me that there are good cops that take out bad cops. And it's going to be in a future broadcast coming up. So,
yeah, there are a lot of them. Believe me.
The cops of cops. Like, I want to meet them. Like, if I'm going to bitch that there are no good cops, then I better, back it up. But this guy's coming out saying, hey, no, I'm the guy that policed the police. So what is he's an IAB and internal affairs guy? I have no idea his full background. Mike, I would like to thank you for your service to the force back when officers were given common sense. So
not a lot of that anymore either. Said really.
Yeah,
sad.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Well, thanks for joining me this morning. As always, you're always welcome on Coffee and a Conversation, and I hope to see you again. I'm glad you're doing well, and we'll see you next time, sir.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Later, Mike. All right. Well, you guys, that's all the time I got for today. I appreciate Chris and Mike for coming on and having a conversation with me this morning. It looks like I'm going to have to go have a conversation with Mr. Cash Jackson now. So I'm going to go do that. So you guys have a good day or don't. The choice is always yours. Catch me next time. Maybe we'll do cannabis in a conversation. We'll see you later.